Hey Garth, so this is my service analysis video. Um, Sorry it's late. I thought that the drink making demonstration was this assignment. So I didn't even know it existed until you mentioned it in our chat today. Anyways, all that aside, I went through the episode and I'm a huge Faulty Towers fan. This is a great episode. I've seen 1,000 times, and I had a lot of fun making a list of all the things that went wrong. I got up to about 35 things that went wrong, and let's dive in. So the first, let's see here. So your first question is the manager. Describe any potential service errors that may have occurred. How would you have rectified any of the errors? So
This course has over 40.
sorry about that. So of the 40 or sorry of the 35 some errors in service I had mentioned, Basil, the manager, takes up the lion's share here, probably 25 of them. Let's just start with some small things. The first thing that happened was that Mr. Faulty Basil was arguing with a customer about the shrimp being off or being bad, going bad. Instead of simply just taking it as feedback and testing it himself, he just argues with the customer about how much they ate and how much of the bill they're going to have to still be responsible for. If I was the manager, very simply, I would have apologized for it, probably comped it. I mean, absolutely comped it if it's off. Maybe take it out back and taste it just to make sure. Um, and then certainly I would have let the chef know, because if it's happening for one table, it's probably going to happen all day. If you got a bad batch of shrimp, not only that, it's dangerous. You don't want to get anybody sick. I think that's the last thing any restaurant owner wants. Um, Next thing, this one made me laugh really hard. At the end, Basil, when he gets all this negative feedback about from all the guests, he just starts screaming something about Nazi Germany, which is just clearly unhinged. He doesn't take any responsibility or ownership. He could have used this opportunity to say, "I'm going to turn over a new leaf," which is what I would have done if I was in that situation where things got that bad, where all the guests in my hotel are like, "This is not acceptable." You got to start asking yourself, what, like, obviously there's some process problems here. So I would have taken all the feedback. I would have apologized profusely. It's hard to think that any realistic business would let things get to that point where it's so bad that all your guests are ready to walk out. Uh, but obviously, taking that as feedback and moving from there would be what I would do in that situation. And I'll give you one more from Basil. There's just so many. Um, let's see here. Basil just pretended that, okay, so he took a bribe to keep the cook on later than he was supposed to be, and then didn't even uphold his end of the bargain and kept the chef around even when they had negotiated a fair price for him to, um, just because he was annoyed that he lied about going to on a date instead of a class. But then he like doubled down on it at every opportunity, and even got to the point of pantomiming a fight between himself, who is also the chef. Obviously, I wouldn't have done any of that. I don't think it's very professional to accept bribes to begin with. It was a hard situation because he was obviously upset that he arrived after dinner service. He could have maybe stood up for himself a little bit more there, just to explain that, look, we don't actually have a chef after that, been a little bit more strong on that point. Otherwise, he could have said, "Look, I can try to fix you something myself." But he really did have an opportunity there to keep the chef on, just pay him a bit more, which I think is completely fair, and keep him on and keep that kitchen running. It would have been saved everybody a lot of trouble. So moving on from the manager, the servers. Well, okay, so Manuel is like my favorite server in any kind of pop culture thing. He's just absolutely useless. Um, when he takes the salad off of the plate and he's looking at it, and he doesn't ask to take it off the plate. He or take it off the table. He just takes the salad off the table, looks at it, makes some sort of weird like animal gesture, like there's something clearly in it, like a fly or a cockroach or just something gross. And then they just pick it out and give it back to them. Like that's so not acceptable under any circumstances. If he did see something, he should have said, look, there's an issue with your salad, or there's a problem. I'll have it right back. The other thing was that Manuel's just so chaotic. He looked at a customer dead in the eye, who was kind of gesturing that it was time to fill up his glass with water, and just ignored them, just straight up ignored them, looked them right in the eye, ignored them, and then put the pitcher on another table, just kind of using it as like a temporary storage, which is probably that's you don't do that either. He could have just gave them water. If he needed to put it down, he could have put it down on the side somewhere. It looked like there was some places he could have done that. Manuel also just clearly panics anytime anything goes slightly wrong. He just sometimes literally just puts his hands in the air and starts screaming. There's a saying in the industry like "go cry in the freezer." Maybe he should do that in the freezer in the walk-in. uh, and let's see here. Uh, this wasn't a really Manuel heavy episode. But Poppy actually, she argues with Basil in the middle of dinner service, and kind of mocks him openly, which is not acceptable. You can't do that to your boss at any job, but right in front of customers. Definitely, if I was her, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just raised that later on, or I don't know, maybe even not at all. Um, so next, so that's the server taken care of, and next we're going to talk about the customer. So from a customer point of view, what was the experience a positive one? I mean, absolutely not. Let's take the perspective of the American gentleman. He asked for something that is a very common dish at that time in the United States, and obviously he felt entitled to that dish even though it was off menu, and he was very vocal about that. But Basil just lied the entire time. Every single opportunity Basil had to take a step back and get out of that situation, he just kept lying to him, and the guests saw right through it. Obviously, it was not even a question, and so he would say, "Oh yeah, the chef messed this up," and eventually he just goes and walks in and sees there's no chef, and at that point, I mean, I can't think of a worse experience. If you were, I've been on the M5 in the UK, and driving on that is hell on wheels, literally. Um, and so after driving all day on that, coming in to rest, and then just having to put up with all those shenanigans, um, is just unacceptable. Unacceptable. There's no way you could justify that. Is the customer always right? Well, you see, this phrase I always have a problem with it, because the customer is always right doesn't mean that the customer is like literally always correct in whatever they do. It means that if you want to push a product, but the customers are more interested in another product that you have, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It means that the customer choice is always right. You have to respect that. Now for this, it was off. He was not giving Faulty any kind of breathing room at all. He wanted what he wanted, and there's going to be customers like that. I think we've all run into folks like that. Is the customer always right? No. I mean, sometimes they are unreasonable. I think he was a bit unreasonable, asking for things off the menu, but at the same time, he did bribe him, so the standards should be a lot higher. If you're going to kind of play wishy-washy with your normal standards. Um, he could have basically just accepted to take something off the menu, like uh, whatever was on the menu, just order off of that. Um, and he could have accepted that the kitchen was closed to begin with, and just gone. And I know it's the 70s, I think, or 80s in Britain, so fast food's not as ubiquitous as it is now. But I'm sure they would have been able to find something somewhere. So what would I have done differently to ensure the success of Faulty Towers in the future? Well, I don't know. I think it's kind of a broken spot. New management, absolutely new management. Fire Manuel yesterday, or at least train him like heavy duty training. Poppy's fine. Mrs. Basil doesn't really work as hard as maybe she should, but I would definitely retrain everybody at the very least. Faulty needs to go maybe take this program and find out how to actually run a tourist minded business. Um, Manuel is the worst waiter I've ever seen. He's so funny. He needs to get retrained clearly, or just let go and replaced. Um, that's yeah, that's the first thing I would do. The chef, it doesn't really seem like a team player. Um, I would maybe even look at that because the food quality coming out of the kitchen, I remember, was so bad. The two old ladies, they were complaining about gristle. So I understand where they're coming from. Yeah, just overall needs a complete overhaul, and HR would be the first place I would start. So that's it. I hope you like this video. I have some software. I was hoping to kind of go through specific moments in the video. I can't get it to work though, so it's just me. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.